Okay, so let's look at into interpretive exercise. Selected response in terms of interpretive exercise. Although I mentioned this one last time when I discussed about multiple choice items. But for today's virtual meeting, I want to give more emphasis on interpretive exercises. Do you see my screen?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Is my
Yes, sir.
audio
Yes,
clear?
sir.
Is my audio clear?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
no. Yes, sir.
So you can find the definition of an interpretive exercise. It consists of information or data followed by several selected response type questions. It can be in terms of maps, it can be in terms of paragraphs, it can be in terms of charts, or maybe figures, or maybe a story, or maybe a data found in a table, or it might be pictures or a set of pictures. And all of these are used to assess skills in terms of interpretation, in terms of analysis, in terms of application, in terms of critical thinking, in terms of reasoning, in terms of comprehension. So if you look at interpretation, the comprehension, we can relate this one to the cognitive skills or the cognitive abilities of the learners. If you look at the revised version of the cognitive domain, that's actually from remembering up to creating a stage. But under this case, we go into higher order thinking skills. Then major advantages over other types of items. Interpretive exercise is possible to measure reasoning skills in greater depth. It gives an in-depth way of measuring reasoning skills. It might be a deductive reasoning or it might be inductive reasoning. Second, it separates assessment of reasoning skills from content knowledge. So there might be some cases that it will be in terms of content knowledge, but on the other case, looking into the deeper sense of interpretive exercise, it gives ability to have some reasoning uh, power of the learners or just the reasoning skills of the learners. The material is relatively familiar to students, but not actually in the case nga the material given in the assessment has been taken already in the class. So otherwise, if that has been taken in the class, it would actually address recall in the cognitive process. Structure is standard for all students. It's not only for one, for two, but to be fair, it's actually for all learners or for all students or for all pupils. Major limitations of interpretive exercises. It's time consuming and difficult to write. The way you're going to construct graph, maps, tables, or charts, it would take a long time. And it's difficult to write those different items, especially that you see to it that all are addressing higher order thinking skills. Do not allow for in-depth assessment of how students organize their thoughts without being cued. So it's not about organization of their thoughts no, without being cued. Often rely heavily on reading comprehension. So this would actually test the reading comprehension of the learners and thereby addressing the second stage of the cognitive domain in the revised version or even in the old version of the cognitive domain. That's about the understanding or the comprehension level. A checklist for writing high-quality interpretive exercises are presented in Figure 8-4, which is actually found in the next slide. So this is Figure 8-4, checklist for writing interpretive exercises. So the first one are reasoning targets clearly defined before writing the exercises. What are the reasoning targets? Define that one clearly before writing the different interpretive exercises. Not in the case that you have the interpretive exercise and you are going to have the reasoning targets. So reasoning targets first that are written clearly, concretely, or in a more defined way, a well-defined reasoning target, and followed by the writing of the exercise. And be sure to make use of the curriculum guide, especially in terms of the learning competencies found in the curriculum guide. Is introductory material brief. So given the story, given the chart, given the table, given the data found in the graph or in the pictures, be sure that it's actually brief. Otherwise, it would be time consuming and it could not be finished on a reasonable time. Is introductory material new to the students? That's very important that something must be new, because if that is not new, that has been given already in the class, that has been taken already in the class, then that would just address remembering or recalling stage of the cognitive domain, both the revised version of the cognitive domain or the old version of the cognitive domain. Does the exercise test deep understanding and reasoning, and not just simple understanding? So it goes to higher order thinking skills. The way you look at the materials, they actually address higher order thinking. So guidelines for interpretive exercises. Number one, identify skills to be assessed before selection or development of the interpretive exercise. So keep introductory material as brief as possible. Select similar but new introductory material. 4, construct several test items for each exercise. Not in the case that you have the material, the interpretive exercise material, and you're going to have only one test item for that material. So normally we have 3 or even 4 items for that given material. Number 5, construct items to require understanding and reasoning and even higher order thinking skills. Assessing comprehension, interpretive exercise. So interpretive exercises are commonly used to measure reading comprehension. They are especially good at assessing reasoning and critical thinking skills. Many different formats can be used. So as you go from one author to another, if you go to different websites, there are many formats of interpretive exercises. So here's an example of an interpretive exercise. Could you read this one, Ernie, Bolivia? What's on the screen? Could you read it one?
Yes, sir. Okay. The hummingbird is amazing. Its wings flap so fast that they are able flapping as much as 80 times a second. The flapping wings also make a soft buzzing sound, which is why it is called a hummingbird. The fast flapping wings are used to go straight up or down, sideways, backward, or upside down. The hummingbird eats the sugary juice of flowers, which is called nectar. It hovers in the air while it is eating with its long, thin bill. Much energy is needed by the hummingbird so that it eats about every 10 minutes and travels to about 1,500 different flowers each day.
So this is an example of a story. And the story actually provided not too long nor too short. And these are the following exercise items. These are the items that are actually referring to the story, referring in the previous slide. So number 1, which of the following best describes nectar? So this one could not be answered if the story provided in the previous slide is not well understood. Number 2, what is the main idea in the second paragraph? Remember, there is a paragraph and there is second paragraph. So what is being asked here? What is the main idea in the second? The choices are provided. A, B, C, and then D. So number one and number two could not be answered correctly if there is no understanding, there is no comprehension on the first paragraph and the second paragraph of the story provided in the previous one. Then number three, why do hummingbirds need to eat all the time? Number four, true or false, nectar is a sweet kind of food. So all of these, number three and number four, can be answered through the understanding, comprehension of the first paragraph and the second. So all in all, number one, number two, number three, and number four are questions that follow the story provided. The story is composed of two paragraphs, the first and second. So without understanding of the first and the second paragraph, then number one, number two, number three, and number four could not be answered correctly. Next example, still in terms of a story. There's a microphone that is not actually turned off. Kindly turn it off before I remove you. Your microphone. Miss Panoy, your microphone is not off. Romel, Taiko, could you read the story provided on the slide?
Yes, sir. Um,
Go ahead.
wait, sir. Okay. So the Boer House should be restored and used as a museum. A museum would help the people of the community learn about their heritage and would attract tourists to Greenville. We should not sell the property to the Opti company. Greenville has grown too quickly, and a factory would bring even more people into the area. In addition, a factory's industrial waste would threaten the quality of our water. Should I continue with Citizen
Yeah.
B, sir? Greenville needs the Opti factory. The factory would provide needed jobs. The tax money it would bring into the community would help improve our streets, schools, and other city services. A museum, on the other hand, would hurt our local economy. Taxes would have to be raised to pay for the restoration of the Bower House. A museum would not create enough jobs to solve our unemployment problems.
Okay. So given the two citizens who spoke at the city council meeting, then the statements are provided on the screen, citizen A and citizen B. Then these are the questions. Write letter A next to each statement that citizen A would most likely agree. Then write letter B next to each statement that citizen B would most likely agree. So we have there number 10, jobs are the foundation of a community. Number 11, pollution problems will multiply. Number 12, we are in danger of losing the history of our community. Number 13, hanging on the past hurts the failure. So if you look at the direction and looking at number 10, number 11, number 12, and number 13, this could not be answered without a correct understanding on the statement of citizen A and the statement of citizen B. So this is still part of the interpretive exercise that we look into comprehension, that we look into reasoning ability of the learners based on citizen A statement and citizen B statement. Next example. Could you read this one, Joshua? Joshua Abelianeda.
Yes, sir. Sally lost her pencil on her way to school. It was read and given to her by her grandmother. She wanted the teacher to ask the class if anyone found the pencil. Circle yes if the information in the sentence will help the class find the pencil. Circle no if the information in the sentence will not help the class find the pencil. Yes,
Okay,
no,
so
number one.
you have there number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and then number 6. So we have there the pencil was new. Sally rides the bus to school. Number 3, the pencil is red. Number 4, the pencil was a present from Sally's grandmother. Number 5, the pencil had a new eraser. Number 6, the teacher knows Sally's grandmother. So it's only about circling yes or circling no. And then it's all about in the given information. Sally lost her pencil on her way to school. It was read and given to her by her grandmother. She wanted the teacher to ask the class if anyone found the pencil. And it's all about a reasoning skill ability, reasoning skill or a reasoning ability based on the given statement. So number 1 to number 6 could not be answered without a very good understanding on what is meant by the given condition and in consideration with the reasoning power, the reasoning skill, the reasoning ability of the learners or the students. Next example. So based on figure 8-5, circle T if the statement is true and if the statement is false. So there is a figure and it's found in 8-5. This one is a figure 8-5. Number of male and female students graduating from high school in the US. So this one is the graph. The source is provided, US Department of Education, Office of Educational Research and Improvement, way back 1994, Digest of Education Statistics, page 188. So this one is the graph provided. And these are the questions. So we have, in 1990, more female than male students graduated from high school. But this one can be verified based on the graph. From 1980 to 1990, the percentage of female students graduating from high school increased gradually. In 1983, the number of females who graduated was the same as the number of males who graduated. Then from 1980 to 1990, more female than male students graduated from high school. So all of these questions can be answered through the analysis of the graph. So looking at the graph, figure 8-5, you're going to look at the y-axis and the x-axis together with the heights of the graphs. And by looking at this graph, analyzing the data found in the graph, then one can answer number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. So still, that is part of an interpretive exercise. So your first assignment for January, so all of you must construct 4 different items about interpretive exercise. Construct 4 different items about interpretive exercise. So no table of specification, no curriculum guide, but just actually the interpretive exercise. So follow the examples. If you want to borrow graphs, you want to borrow stories from the internet, always apply citation. Where did you get that one? And then ask questions. The minimum number of questions is 3. No? Minimum number of questions from each is 3. You can have 3, you can have 4, 5, so forth and so on. But never 1 nor 2. The minimum is 3. And you can go 4, so forth and so on. Then you go to number 2, interpretive exercise. The minimum questions is 3. And then example number 2, interpretive exercise. Number 3 up to number 4. Each must consist of a minimum of 3 different questions. Did you get that one? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So
sir.
that's your first
Yes,
assignment.
sir.
It's all about interpretive exercise. How many items?
Minimum of
4.
How many
4 different
items?
items.
4, sir.
Four.
Or
But each item should have a minimum of 3 questions. So when I say minimum of 3 questions, so we have 3 is the minimum, but you can go 4, you can go 5, so forth and so on. So if you borrow story from a book or maybe from an online resources, then you can actually cite that one, no? Apply citation. If you borrow graph from an online resource, apply citation. So do not forget to apply citation when you borrow story, when you borrow graph, charts, or table. Do not create your own story. Do not create your own graph, but just borrow that one from the internet. However, the items that should be created must be from your own. No? Do not borrow the questions. Remember, the questions for interpretive exercise are actually in higher order thinking skills. So is that clear to everyone?
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to skip technology enhanced items because what we are going to do is just the manual interpretive exercise. Any clarification?
Wala na, sir.
Okay, so I'll stop here. In terms of the summary, I'll just look at the summary for interpretive exercise. So it is stated in the second bullet, selected response interpretive exercises include information and or data followed by several questions. So there are informations given in the story, there are informations given in the graph, in the figure, in the chart, or in the table, and that is normally followed by several questions. So it can be 3, it can be 4, it can be 5, so forth and so on. Next is interpretive exercises are effective for assessing comprehension, application, and reasoning skills, and can reflect real-life situations, context, and then other issues, which can be in higher orders. Interpretive exercises are effective if learning targets are clearly defined, if introductory material is new to students, and if they are not too long. So not too long. Remember, if there is a story, it must not be too long. If there is a table, it must not be too long. If there's a graph, there's only minimal number of data presented in the graph, not actually too many data presented in the graph. Otherwise, the different items could not be answered in a reasonable period of time. So any questions? So I'll stop there.
Wala na, sir.